So I'm going to offer the pulpit to Rev Ryan to share his insights on water.
Where did you find that picture? I love it. Golly, y'all, that's from like, well, I can say golly because that's actually from Kentucky. And I was allowed to say words like reckon and golly and so forth when I was in Kentucky. So today we're going to look at two aspects of water. And in such, we're going to be really real. And I'm going to share a little bit of where I'm at. I wrote a beautiful sermon. I like to call it a beautiful sermon over the past couple days. And I crumpled it up this morning and I threw it away. And we're going to wing this one because the whole reality of where we're at right now is, well, it's about honesty and it's about humility and so forth. So here we go. Real fast, I want everybody to kind of hold on. I've got my water toy. So just because this is going to be a little bit of a dangerous, vulnerable sermon, I'm going to put on my floaty and I'm going to jump in with you guys. So last Sunday, you guys might have saw there was a pretty big swell out there in Santa Cruz. It was a gorgeous Sunday morning. I was in full control of life, so I thought, and I jumped on my surfboard, paddled out, and was out at Steamer Lane. And if you guys know the dynamic, it's pretty crowded, it's pretty intense. There were big waves, and the setup was perfect. I was sitting far off to the side. Kind of had my own little spot and it wasn't really catching anything, too many people, but I was just kind of soaking in the spirit. And all of a sudden there's this swinger wave that just came out to the outside and just this gorgeous, pristine, glassy, sun reflecting off. And it started building up. So I started paddling into it and it was just for me. It was like the universe had granted me this one opportunity, this one wave. Just way over my head, just beautiful. I was going to catch it. So I paddled and I felt the flow. You guys ever feel that flow? And I felt the waves start to take control of me. And right as I was getting up to the top, I jumped to my feet and in perfect Ryan fashion, my left foot slipped right off the board and I straddled down and somehow did about 82 somersaults. And this perfect, beautiful wave turned into a perfectly ugly wipeout. We've been there. Honestly, starting last March, society wiped out. That's where we're at right now. And I fought it. And I was under the water and I came to the top and I was just thrashing around. And I was fighting and I was panicking. We have two ways to respond to a wipeout. We can panic and we can try to fight it, or we can just kind of suck it up and go with the flow. I've been kind of repeating in my head this mantra lately. I am not in control. I surrender to the flow. And I think that's super big in our society right now where we're at with this wipeout is we are not in control. The best thing we can do is surrender to the flow. And if you guys have ever been stuck under a wave, it can be pretty tumultuous and you're searching for air. So I made it to the surface. It was all right. And all of a sudden I looked up and my surfboard was about 50 feet that way and there was no way to get it. There was a bunch of waves coming and I just kind of had to take a beating. And once again, that's kind of where we're at right now. Every once in a while in our society, we pop to the surface and we have to recognize that we're going to have to take a beating. And I couldn't swim to the stairs and I couldn't swim out and I couldn't get out of the way. And I had to hold my breath and hope that I would come to the surface. And after about 5 waves and my surfboard breaking into about 5 pieces, I managed to swim back to the stairs, get out of there, and I came back soggy but refreshed. So there's 2 ways of looking at the water. When you come to the surface after a wipeout, it's actually better than catching a good wave sometime if you allow it to happen. Like I said, sociologically, we're in a wipeout right now, you guys. So we have 2 ways to approach it. We can fight it and we can try to swim against the current, We can do everything we can to just battle and hold on to control, or we can surrender control. And when you do, you reach that surface, and that cold water, that refreshment, it's this beautiful experience of kind of coming back. So in the Christian tradition, and I love the quote by Rumi is just so beautiful. Water has the power to unify, and it has the power to heal. So as a Christian pastor, I just wanted to touch on this idea of healing, of refreshing, of unifying, of bringing us back to life. Once again, in the Christian tradition as a whole, there's a whole bunch of branches. When you cling to control, when you try to make a sacrament, a formed thing out of the wipeout, we get ourselves into trouble. The water sacrament of baptism has actually divided churches for years and years, and centuries and millennia. Do we baptize as infants? Do we baptize as adults? Do we need it? Do we do this, that, and the other? We have a whole formula for it. Or we can surrender control and just look at the refreshing element of it. Sorry, I'm kind of losing it a little bit. It's been a rough week. But what that requires is kind of trust. It requires surrender, and it requires receiving. And when we finally just ditch all the control elements of it, and we're able to trust in the wipeout, go with the flow, surrender ourselves to it, we're able to receive. So I kind of wanted to share with you guys where I was at right now, because the other aspect of water, it can be this unifying thing, this rebirth, this rebaptism, if you let it, and it can be this healing experience. So also from our tradition, we have this beautiful story of healing, and just real fast paraphrase, it's out of the Gospel of John. And there's a paraplegic lying lame for 30 some years next to this water, this healing water. And when you're thrown into this water, the idea is that it just takes you, it heals all your ailments, heals all your sickness. So in that, he's lying there just waiting for somebody to toss him in. He's completely out of control. He can't move. And finally, Jesus walks by, and he looks at him and he goes like, heal me, heal me. And Jesus looks at him and he asks, do you want to be made well? Not like, I'll throw you in the water, not here you are, here's your healing. Do you want to be made well? And part of that is, am I willing to give up control? Am I willing to surrender, to trust, and thus am I willing to receive the healing powers of water, the healing properties? So this morning, I actually come to you guys. I gave up control. I realized that I was going to wipe out, and I couldn't give up control on my own. So I'm actually down here in Southern California, in Hollywood of all places. And for 30 days, I surrendered control to an eating disorder program, realizing that I had an opportunity. A wipeout, a pandemic is an opportunity. Epicurus was really famous for saying that every once in a while in society we're given this swerve, and we're thrown out, we're wiped out, basically. And some people go with the flow, they surrender control, and those people evolve. They swerve. It's the first mention of evolution, really, in history, way BC. And I was given an opportunity to take this 30 days off. And in doing so, just kind of go with the wipeout, go with the flow. And answer that question, do we want to be made well? Do I want to be made well? Am I willing to? So as we and I hand this off to Terra, and I'm sorry that today was a babble, but like I said, it's been a pretty interesting week, and I'm learning so much, and my head's a little bit still in the white water. So I'm going to hand it off to Terra, but I wanted to do so with just this thought of, what does it mean in my life as I've been given this opportunity, as I've been wiped out for a year now? Because we're coming out of it, you guys. But coming out of it, we can either come out of it very, very far ahead, growth. Are you really working on yourself? Do you want to be made well? Or we can come out of it after a fight, trying to hold control this whole time. So in these final months of quarantine, these final months of unpleasantries, what is your lifeline? Where are you being washed around? And can you enjoy that process of just being completely humbled and stirring under the sea for a while and embracing the healing aspects of water and the unifying kind of coming together that they offer when we finally reach the surface and we've given our control away. So I'll be with you guys next month. I love you all so much. And gosh, it's so beautiful to see your faith. That last aspect of baptism, actually, in the Christian tradition, the one thing that holds true through all the different denominations and fighting is that you're baptized into community. And our one lifeline that we have is community. So thank you guys for being a part of my community, for being my community. And here's the handoff. So many blessings, you guys. Namaste, Godspeed, amen, and shalom, Terra. There you go.
I think our service today has shown us the power, the spontaneity, the willingness to go with the flow, to not hold on too tight, to have an idea, but to let what is going to unfold. And in light of the events this week, we must ask ourselves, how does a religious person respond? How does a Unitarian Universalist person respond? What is our prophetic imperative? This has been an astonishing week in so many ways. I learned the term prophetic imperative from the Reverend Dr. Richard Gilbert, a senior Unitarian Universalist minister in our denomination. And I would invite someone to please type that term into the chat. Here's the book. And this book is a course of study in itself. But for the service today, I will lift up his definitions of prophetic and imperative. Gilbert offers that UU prophecies are not so much predictors of the future, but more as architects and its co-creators. He says, the prophetic church is a religious community that seeks to intervene in human history for the sake of social justice. The imperatives, he stresses, are those which emerge from disciplines of freedom through the compulsions of conscience, both personal and collective, and a sense of urgency to live out the ethical implications of a religious faith. He says, quote, such a religious mandate has sources inherent in the very nature of liberal religious community, end quote. Now, I imagine that there are as many ways to address these questions and this prophetic imperative as there are people attending this service right now. We all come from our own reference points, even in community. We are a bunch of individuals, each of us with our nuanced personalities, life experiences, family and ancestry, passions, ways of being and livelihood. And then there's nationality. Are we from the north, the south, the east, the west? What is our orientation? Whatever that is, it greatly influences how we respond to activities and things in the world. And there are endless contributing factors that develop our personal and national identity. As individuals, we do our part, and we are like a droplet. As a community, we are working alongside other individuals and their energetic droplets. They all come together. The shared plate work of the justice team, and as it is participated in by this congregation, is a perfect example of how the UUFSCC actuates our religious mandate, how we seek to intervene in human history for the sake of social justice. When we participate as a congregation, all those droplets combine, and we are like a sizable puddle. And then we combine our efforts with other congregations and our civic opportunities and our ways to engage in the larger world. If you go to the Unitarian Universalist Association website, you will find a wealth of groups that are addressing the variety of issues that surround justice, like UU the Vote, activating thousands of Unitarian Universalists to mobilize for electoral justice at the local, state, and national levels. Or Side with Love, a campaign for immigrant justice that harnesses the power of love to end oppression. And there are so many economic justice groups like UU's for Just Economic Community, the UU College of Social Justice, and the long-standing Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. All of these efforts come together as rivulets and streams, as creeks and rivers. I think you know where I'm going with this. All collecting and making its way to influence a large body of water, be it be a great lake or an ocean. Essentially, we are a part of that collection of many waters, and our efforts and contributions really do matter. In the invocation, we invited the principle of democracy, because democracy as a governance model is in its simplicity a progressive method of establishing leadership for people and commerce. And ideally, and I really lift up ideally, when exercised with honest processes, democracy works for the common good, and it is a hallmark of this country. And right now, we are seeing our democracy greatly, greatly challenged. I have intentionally offered an abstract vision in this sermon to paint a large enough picture for the individual to find their own place, their own part, where their small droplet can make a substantial contribution. How can you exercise your prophetic imperative? So in the weeks and the days to come, when the inevitable next astonishing thing happens, look into your Unitarian Universalist mind, body, and spirit, and imagine how you can take action and what you want to lend your droplet of energy toward in this great movement of water that moves toward the efforts of peace, liberty, and justice for all. Blessed be the ways of water.